Hi everyone, it is Dolphin Song by Lawrence and John, and we have been through some pretty exciting reading. So here we go, chapter 21. It was extraordinary to witness how much one not very well boy could do to galvanize a group. Before anybody could object, Claudius had organized Jake to run to the lighthouse and Runway Beach to collect every bulb, pot, or container capable of holding water, plus some palm fronds to shade them all. Ben and Nathan were sent to gather firewood and catch fish, because Claudia said they would need all the energy they could get to make it through the night. Lucy and Sherilyn were dispatched to gather up the honeycomb, coconuts, spare clothing, and chunks of aloe. Martine hoped that the aloe leaf gel would help soothe the dolphins' exposed skins and prevent them from cracking. She and Claudia stayed behind to dig holes in which to tuck the dolphins' pectoral fins, which would help keep them upright and comfortable. Then they spread great armfuls of seaweed over the dolphins to keep them from literally cooking in their own blubber. Martine went from one to the next, putting her palms over their hearts and feeling the tingle of electricity in response. They gazed up at her with their limpid, knowing eyes as if they trusted her to help them. And that terrified Martine because she was afraid she might not be able to. And as she walked and murmured to them, not really knowing what she was saying, she became aware that what had started as a feeling of anguish when she saw the dolphins in distress was gradually consuming her heart. It was as if they were an extension of her. When she looked into Little Storm's eye, she saw that he recognized something she herself had never understood until that moment, that she felt his pain. She took on the burden of it. Claudius was unaware of these internal revelations as he followed her, pausing in between dolphins to scoop up water from the departing sea with containers he'd improvised from a large shell and a coconut. "Thanks for what you did earlier," Martine said, as she watched him pour water onto Rain Queen's head, taking care to avoid her blowhole. If water went into the blowhole she used for breathing, she could drown. Claudius's mouth twisted. "No, thank you," he replied, and she knew he wasn't talking about the dolphins. When she reached Sundancer, Martine cradled the dolphin's silver-grey head in her arms and kissed him. Fighting back tears, she said softly, "Please, Sundancer, find a way to tell us how to help you." "What do you expect? That he's suddenly going to start talking like Flipper?" Claudius jibed with a flash of his old sarcasm. But he knew straight away that he'd been insensitive and tried to make amends, saying, "You really love them, don't you?" "Yes, I do." "Why? How do you feel about them?" Claudius gave Sundancer's back an experimental stroke. "I'm not sure. I haven't been around them as much as you. I just know that saving them seems like the most important thing I've ever done in my life. I care about that more than I care about getting off this island." But the saving the dolphins was, as Jake had predicted, back-breaking work. They split into two groups and worked in shifts. Martine, Jake, and Lucy took the first shift because Nathan and Ben were still out fishing. Each of them had responsibility for 7 dolphins. They had to apply aloe gel to their skins, pour seawater over them, and then drape them with seaweed. The most tiring part was the trips to the lake for fresh water or to the edge of the crashing waves around the peninsula, a stony beach they'd named Danger to fill the various containers Jake had found. Every hour they switched and slept, ate, or stared into space while Ben, Nathan, and Sherilyn took a turn with the dolphins. Then they'd rotate. Claudius didn't have the stamina of the others, so it was his job to keep the fire blazing, time the shifts, motivate everyone, and attempt to cook meals, which he did extremely badly. so badly that it was decided after a disgusting lunch that at mealtimes he should take over Sherilyn's duties with the dolphins while she cooked. As night drew in, a wicked wind whipped up the surf and the temperature plunged. They were on Danger Beach filling the containers when Ben suddenly stopped what he was doing, straightened, and said, "Did anybody hear that?" Everyone fell silent. A wave crashed and the sea was temporarily hushed. The sound came again, a distinct ping. They waited a few seconds and it happened once more. "That's the sound I heard when I was doing my exercises," said Jake. "A pinging noise. I thought it was a bird or some weird fish or other." "It's sonar," Ben told him. "Sonar?" cried Martine. Ben raised his eyebrows. "Yes, sonar. When my dad was in the Navy, he took me to see the testing of a new transmitter, and I'd know that noise anywhere. Basically, a transmitter sends out pulses of sound that bounce off submarines and other objects in the ocean and are detected as returning echoes. That's what the ping is. But why would anybody test it out here? If we can hear it, it's probably low-frequency active sonar, which is used by the Navy. A lot of scientists believe that LFA sonar is one of the main causes of dolphins and whales getting stranded," said Martine, remembering her conversation with Mr. Manning during the sardine run. "If scientists know that, why do the Navy still use it?" Sherilyn asked. "Grown-ups don't always fix the obvious things," Nathan told her. "That's because they're so busy telling us not to eat too many sweets or run in the house or talk to strangers or stand in the trees when there's lightning. They don't have time," Lucy remarked. There was quiet as they listened again for the pinging noise, but it had stopped. "That's a pity," said Jake. "If there's sonar, maybe it means the Navy are about, and if the Navy are about, they might save us and take us back to Cape Town." Everybody glared at him, and he had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm just saying," he said defiantly. "Of course I care about the dolphins." Chapter 22. To be fair, Jake more than pulled his weight during the endless night that followed. It was so cold and the ritual rinsing of dolphin skins so mind-numbing that half the time Martine wasn't sure if she was awake, asleep, or hallucinating. She worried that the unaccustomed pressure could damage their kidneys, livers, and hearts, so she focused what little healing power she could summon on those organs. Once an hour she moved from dolphin to dolphin in the firelit darkness, running her hands along their abdomens and bellies in such a subtle way that not even Ben noticed, to take her mind off her muscles, which soon grew sore to the point of screaming. She allowed her thoughts to drift to Salbona. There was a giraffe-shaped hole in her heart where Jimmy was supposed to be. She wondered what he was doing now, and whether he missed her as much as she missed him. She wondered if she'd ever again have the chance to ride him onto the escarpment on a starry night, as she'd done before Gwyn Thomas stopped her from riding after sundown, and to lie with her head on his withers and her feet on his hind quarters, losing herself in Mars, the Southern Cross, and the Milky Way, as all star formations. On those nights she'd felt cloaked by Africa, almost as if the mother spirit of the landscape had cast a protective veil around her shoulders. She missed Grace's wisdom and Tendai's bass drum laugh, and increasingly she missed the evenings with Gwyn Thomas. Sometimes her grandmother was worn out from a hard day on the reserve, and they'd just sit quietly together after dinner, listening to the radio or reading books. But at other times she'd tell Martine tales of the history of Southern Africa, of rivers running red with the blood of spear-throwing Zulus and voortrekkers, the early white settlers, of epic malaria and blackwater fever-racked journeys by ox-wagon, of tribes displaced by the whims of politicians in Europe, of men driven mad with greed for gold and diamonds. Yeah, I've got to admit, sorry for the slight interruption in reading over here. Yeah, it's just the history of South Africa is really a difficult history, with colonialism really having caused problems. But that's one of the things about history is so difficult. Anyway, let's keep reading, everybody. And if you get a chance, just do read about the history of South Africa. And thank goodness we are past apartheid, but South Africa got so damaged by the white settlers coming in. But they have their history as well. She talked to Martine's mum and dad, and those were the stories Martine cherished most. Your mum always said that she knew David was the man for her when she watched him wade into the middle of a torrential river to rescue a baby monkey clinging to a fragment of rock, Gwen Thomas had told her with a smile. David Allen was an Englishman in Cape Town for a medical conference, and for both him and Veronica, it was love at first sight. These are Martine's parents who have died. They'd been married at the game reserve 3 months after David waded from the river with a dripping baby monkey, and David had moved to South Africa to be with his new bride. He'd found a job at a famous hospital, and for a while the future had looked perfect. Until fate had intervened, or at least until Grace had told Veronica that her baby, born on New Year's Day, a year after their wedding, had a gift with animals. The Sangoma warned her that the gift would carry an awesome responsibility, and that Martine's destiny was unalterable. These words had changed everything. Martine, Martine. Martine shook herself. Nathan was standing in front of her. You can rest now, he said. You look as if you need it. In the end, the actual saving of the Dolphins was almost an anticlimax. The tide came in shortly before 4:30 a.m. and left foaming outlines around the Dolphins, who by then were as weak as their carers. The water took an age to inch high enough off the beach to actually lift the Dolphins off the sand, and by that point, nobody was capable of doing anything but encouraging them to swim out to sea. The Dolphins moved tentatively at first, and then with increasing fluidity and speed. Martine's chest was tight with emotion as she watched them go, especially when Sundancer wheeled back and clicked to her before leaving. We did it, whooped Jake. Everyone came together for a group hug, which despite their wet, clammy skins was somehow the warmest Martine had ever had. Then they collapsed in hysterical laughter on the sand. That's it, said Lucy. I'm officially on holiday. I refuse to lift a finger between now and when we leave the island. I don't care if we're stuck here for a year. How is that different to usual? Claudius asked dryly, and even Lucy had to giggle. All of a sudden Sherilyn said, Oh no. Nathan groaned. What is it? Asked Martine. She sat up and squinted into the sunlight. Minnie was on the fringe of the surf. It was plain she intended to beach herself again. Martine was distraught. The weight of the Dolphin's suffering returned to crush her again. Maybe she's so traumatized she's lost the will to live. That happens to some dolphins. No matter how many times they return to the sea, they keep trying to escape it. Come on, everyone, Claudia said tiredly. Back to work. I can't, Lucy whined. I just can't. Get up off your lazy bum and come and help. Sherilyn ordered, much to everybody's astonishment, and Lucy, to her credit, did just that. 3 times they pushed Minnie out to sea, and 3 times the Dolphin returned. Finally, their strength really did run out. The marathon night had taken its toll. Minnie dragged herself onto the beach one final time, and Martine went to sit beside her to try to comfort her in her last moments. Don't you want to be in the ocean anymore? She asked despairingly. Don't you want to be with your friends? She was stroking Minnie's head when she noticed something jutting from the Dolphin's mouth. She removed it carefully. It was a section of clear cable. Martine's hands began to shake. Ben, she called. and he was by her side in an instant. He took the cable from her and examined it closely, and they both looked over at Minnie. The grandmother's dolphin's eyelids slit shut, and she heaved a big sigh. "No, Minnie, you're not allowed to die," Martine sobbed, but it was already too late. Sherilyn came over and tried to console her, but Martine was beyond consolation. Someone or something had killed Minnie, as surely as if they had shot her, and she was not going to rest until she found out who or what had done it. "I think you're right," she said in a low voice to Ben when Sherilyn stepped away to talk to the others. "There is a reason why people are staying away from this island. It's cursed or protected, or there's a secret here. There is something wrong with this place. And what do the cables have to do with anything?" "I don't know," Ben said, "but I know we're not going to be able to find the answers on our own." Wow, who else is around on the island? Who else has an agenda here who's trying to keep people away from the island? What's going on?